Today is June 4th, 2025. This is University of Florida student Sofia Chianella.
And I'm Ian Mayhood.
This interview is part of the UF in Salzburg Study Abroad program, Voices of Salzburg project in collaboration with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program. We are at the Dorint Hotel in Salzburg, Austria, with Dr. Jean-Marie Krier. Dr. Krier, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview today. For the record, could you please state your full name and spell it?
Jean-Marie. It's spelled Jean-Marie.
And your last name as well.
My last name is Krier. That's Krier.
And when and where were you born?
I was born in Luxembourg, in the city of Luxembourg, in the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, this small country between France and Germany, on April 2nd, 1955.
Great, thank you.
So you were born in Luxembourg and lived there until pursuing studies in educational sciences and sociology at the University of Salzburg. Can you tell us more about the early stages of your life and how that shaped the path that brought you to Salzburg?
Well, I was born and raised in Luxembourg, so I visited primary school and secondary school in Luxembourg. And in those times, Luxembourg, the country, Luxembourg, didn't have any university of its own. So all people who finished their secondary studies, they simply were forced to go abroad. Many of my colleagues went to French-speaking countries. For me, the option was clear. I wanted to go to a German-speaking country. So you have the choice between Switzerland, Germany, and Austria, and I opted for Austria. And happily, two colleagues that went to the same class in the final secondary class with me, they absolutely wanted to come to Salzburg because they wanted to go for psychology studies. And at that time, Salzburg was very well known for one particular professor of psychology, where many people from different parts of Austria came to Salzburg to study here. So the choice was, let's go together to Salzburg.
That's really interesting. Now, in our previous chat, you mentioned that you moved to Salzburg for your education and that you left Luxembourg. Do you still feel a strong connection to Luxembourg? And how did growing up in Luxembourg shape your worldview?
Well, yes, I still have a very strong relationship towards Luxembourg because I'm still a citizen of Luxembourg. Well, if it would be possible to opt for two citizenships at the same time, I would also go for the Austrian ones. But the Austrian legislation is very strict in that sense that if you want to become an Austrian citizen, and that would be possible for me without any doubt, but I would then have to give my Luxembourg citizenship back. And I won't do that because that's still my origin and it's part of my life. So, while growing up in Luxembourg, how did it shape my worldview? I think what I got from my parents' home was a rather strong sense for justice and for fairness, and they had a certain degree of world openness, but they didn't have the resources to travel that much. So only at their very later age they were able to see some parts of the world. But when I grew up, together during the 19 years I lived in Luxembourg together with my parents, we were on holidays only once, and that was on the Belgian coast. That is 350 kilometers from Luxembourg. So it wasn't really far away travel. But I think that was somehow important. Certain degree of world openness, and then this feeling for justice and fairness.
And can you just expand on how were there other mentors or influences that inspired you to go about pursuing social justice, or do you think it was mostly your parents?
Well, Afterwards, yes, but not during my time in Luxembourg. Afterwards, well, you had a group of colleagues that were studying together with you at the university. Then, well, 4 or 5 years into Salzburg, I met who is now my wife, and we've been in relation for 48 years now. And together with her, well, that was our first travel together. We went to Mexico, and I had been to Mexico with two male colleagues of mine the year before, and well, the all male experience was an experience of adventurous. We are conquering the world, and we will be around in Mexico, and we dare do everything that is thinkable. And I didn't really see the social reality of Mexico then. And with the following year, when I went then with my now wife, she opened me the eyes, because she had a completely different look at what was happening and what we were looking at in Mexico. And that was somehow, well, kind of start for my becoming politically much more aware. And then we went into reading together some books on the history of Latin America and the social reality of Latin America. And that was for me really the eye-opener. So it was really my wife who was I guess, the most important influencer.
That's great. That's a really interesting aspect of how you got into this type of work and into this field. That seems like a very eye-opening experience. Touching on that eye-opening experience, we learned in our past interview with you that after college, your first job was with the Children's Village organization in Innsbruck, Austria. How would you say that you got into this role, and how would you say that impacted any of your future endeavors?
Well, when I finished my university studies, it was somehow clear, because of love, I would want to stay in Austria. So I was looking to find a job. I was looking all over Austria, because we were thinking about moving probably to the capital in Vienna. But by chance, I found this job in Innsbruck, which was interesting in so far from the very beginning, because it was not with the SOS Children's Villages in Austria, but with the SOS Children's Village Association International. So for me, this was opening up the opportunity to somehow travel around, see SOS projects all over the world as a long-term perspective, and also being in contact with people from all over the world, making use of my language knowledge, because I finished in Luxembourg, as all the other colleagues as well, with, let's say, a fair knowledge of English, a very good knowledge of German, and also a very good knowledge of French. And with these three languages, and during my university studies, I also got into Spanish, so I had more or less 4 languages to act upon and to make use of. And all these aspects came together in that job. And well, after a short period of training in one Austrian SOS Children's Village, I was asked or invited by the then still founder, still alive, Hermann Gemeiner, who founded this organization in 1946, to come with him to a 4 weeks tour through SOS Children's Village projects in Western Africa. So we went there, we opened new villages, we opened new vocational training centers, we opened new primary schools and secondary schools. And for me, it was very, very impressive, and opening up a new continent for me, because up to that time, I was very much aware of what was happening in Latin America. I was very interested in all the political developments in the region. I read a lot of Latin American authors at that time, so I had some good feeling about what was going on there, but I had no idea at all of what was going on the African continent. So that was for me the introduction into, again, a completely new world.
And how did language play a role in going to Western Africa? It seems to be such an important part of the children's village thing, but were you able to communicate efficiently with your language knowledge?
Yes. I was more or less, I was very young to the organization. I was, I think, 5 or 6 months into it, and still on training in some Austrian project of the organization, when I was more or less taken really into this journey through Western Africa. And I was the youngest one on the group, and my role was to be the translator for the big chief, for the founder of the organization. And as the organization was a very large donor to all these countries, because they were financing schools, they were financing vocational training centers, small clinics, small hospitals. So we were in each of the countries, we were invited or by the by the minister for social affairs, or by the president of the country, and I was then acting as a translator.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is very interesting. So with that, having the work that you had done in the continent of Africa, it seems like that experience that you had, and then your later connection and your work to fair trade and global learning movements, was there a time or a place where you felt really inspired to start your work in global learning and fair trade and educating people on those different matters?
Well, I have been interested in this so-called third world, or now it's more or less globalization related topics, for many years before coming to SOS Children's Village. And then I read a lot about it, and after this first journey through West Africa, I went the year after that, or 2 years after that, I went there for a second time. Then I spent like 5 weeks again in West African projects, and I saw many so-called development projects that went wrong. What is called in the African context so-called white elephants. That's elephants. There are no white elephants. So it was about projects where good-willing international donors set up a project, and 2 years or 3 years later, there was nothing left, and it was not working at all. I've seen hospitals that cost millions and millions of dollars or of euros that simply weren't in use because nobody was being trained to operate these hospitals. Nobody had the resources to really continue the operation of the hospital. And after that, it was clear for me that this kind of development assistance or development aid, that was not the right way for me to go along with. And for me, therefore, it became clearer that I wanted to bring about, or to help to bring about, some change in the country I was living in. Because it's so easy to know what is appropriate for people to develop in Ghana or in Togo. But ask yourself the question, what are the measures we have to take to foster development in the country we live in. And I still don't have a completely right answer to me, even after 70 years of living in Luxembourg, or now it's more than 50 years living in Austria. I have some ideas, but it's so complex. And well, for me, it was then clear that my role is not to bring some development to other countries, but to help to bring some positive developments into this country where I do live and where I have some knowledge of what's going on.
Seeming extremely passionate about this matter, could you describe to us some of the positions or roles that you held in Austria to carry out this type of work that you wanted to do?
Yes, well, after Innsbruck, I moved then to Vienna, and I worked there for 2 years with an organization that is still active today under the name of Südwind, wind from the south, and bringing new ideas from the southern parts of the globe. And for me, that was a very important change, because it meant that the perspective was now only on what's happening in Austria. It was about informing the general public. It was about bringing workshops to schools, organizing conferences on topics. But it was always about what can be changed here in Austria in order to make up new opportunities to people living in other countries or other parts of the world. And well, that was for 2 years I was with that organization, and then the opportunity opened up to come back to Salzburg, because my wife was still working and living in Salzburg. So for 6 years we had kind of a distance relationship where we met maybe every second weekend or so. And after these 6 years, 4 years in Innsbruck, 2 years in Vienna, I had the chance to come back to Salzburg. I applied to this job at the first and largest fair trade organization of Austria, EZA. For the first time when I applied, I wasn't accepted. 5 or 6 months later, the new general manager had already gone again. And then I was applying for a second time. I was accepted. And that was then my entrance into this fair trade world. And I spent then 11 years acting as general manager of this company. That is, well, it was then located like 5 kilometers outside of the city. Now it's a little bit farther away. It's like 10 or 12 kilometers.
So in our previous chat, you talked about how your interest in justice and sociology, you realized that a lot of these projects needed people who had more quantitative skills. Can you talk about how you came up to realize this and what you did to obtain these skills?
Okay. Yes, that's a very important aspect, or has been a very important aspect of much of the work I've done in the last decades. If you go to, or if you come together with people who are interested in this kind of topics, be it fair trade or development aid, development assistance, positive globalization, etc., you have mostly people who are very interested in the issue, but who have no idea at all when it comes to economics or to business. And that was very interesting for me, the experience of fair trade, because in fair trade, you get both. You have to manage your own business and to make sure that your balance sheets are right, and that your supply chain is well operating, and all this kind of purely business stuff. And on the other hand, it's more than a business. It's also the idea to be a positive partner to the producers of your fair trade products. So that's mainly small cooperatives in southern countries like Mexico, Guatemala, or India, Pakistan, wheresoever. And for me, that has opened many new doors to me, because in my job in Innsbruck, I was moving very fast up the so-called career ladder, and I was very fast responsible for a huge budget that was like 75 million Deutschmarks at that time. That was really an incredible sum. And faced with that kind of responsibility, it was clear for me I hadn't the knowledge, and I hadn't the resources to really bring that further. And therefore I started a second university study that was by distance education at a German, that was then the first and most important German distance university. It was not yet online because that didn't exist. It was you were getting every single week, you were getting thick packages of written material, and then you had to send to fill out some some paper and send them back and have them corrected, etc. And all the tests were being taken somewhere in Germany, so you had to travel to Munich or somewhere farther up, like Frankfurt or so, and then you had your tests, and it was a normal university study. So, and that was business administration. So for me, that was important, and ever since I have been very much involved in positions where you need both, where you need some business knowledge, and where it's important to also bring with you this kind of empathy for social justice questions.
That's really incredible, all the work that you've accomplished. And that being said, reflecting on your career and all of your accomplishments, such as creating the Fair Trade logo in 1992-93, along with your impact in various non-governmental organizations, is there any moments that stand out as particularly transformative or rewarding?
Yes. Well, the setting up of this Fair Trade organization, that was, well, I would say it's one of the three main accomplishments, because that wasn't easy. And nowadays, like 33 years later, you really see that it's been a very big success. In 1992, when I was one of the two founders of the organization that is now Fair Trade Austria, everybody was just laughing at you. Whenever somebody was asking you, where are you working, or what are your interests? And you said, well, I'm very much into fair trade. Everybody was just laughing, because fair trade, nobody did take it seriously. And nowadays, it's been taken seriously. Fair trade products are available in 5,500 supermarket stores all over Austria. So it's no longer this niche undertaking. That's one. The second one was in 2005. I had the privilege to be called on a small committee that was preparing a very large meeting of winners or recipients of the so-called Alternative Nobel Prize. That is, it was set up in the early 80s by a Swedish stamp collector who wanted to have a kind of similar prize like the classic Nobel Prize for people who are into human rights, who are into development questions, who are active in environmental organizations all over the world. And the Nobel Prize didn't accept him, so he founded his own organization that is now the Right Livelihood Award Association. And in 2005, a small committee in Salzburg was preparing a large meeting of 70 people coming to Salzburg, 70 of these prize recipients coming to Salzburg, having a big conference for the duration of 1 year, more 1 week, more or less. And when I was called on that committee, the question was somehow, because I was very much focused on work of small NGOs and small organizations and organic farmers and engaged school teachers, the question I was asking myself is that enough to have one place of a conference and asking, large parts of Salzburg to come to that place? And it was clear that this place, that was large education center in Salzburg, St. Virgil, that could hold like 400 or maybe 500 or 600 people, but then it would be finished. So I had the idea, and I'm still very proud of that idea, because I think that was really a very good one, to change the logic of the conference, not to make people come to one place, but to have the 70 people, the 70 prize winners, to go to different places. And that idea was accepted and was also being put into practice. So we had 70 people that were given for one whole day to small organizations, schools, the university, etc. For one day, they came to pick up their guests in the very morning. They brought them back in the very late evening. And so we had like 70 different events in 70 different places all over the Salzburg region, reaching about 3,500 people on that very day. So that was a very good one. And the third one is, but it's all in the past. So, but maybe we also come to something that is very brand new and, in the past, 2007, Luxembourg, so my home country, and the city of Luxembourg, the place where I was born, became what is called the so-called European capital of culture. And that is a kind of, prize or award that is being given to, I think it's 2 or 3 different cities every single year by the European Union. They give then also a kind of budget, and it's supposed that these capital cultural European capitals, that they make use of the opportunity to present themselves as being very open to new cultural activities and to organize many events. And 2007, Luxembourg was the European capital of culture. My best friend was appointed as the general director of this whole year, with a lot of budget behind him. And he had more or less a similar way of moving in his professional career. He was also in this third world issues involved, and also in fair trade in Luxembourg. And it didn't take long, and then it was getting clear for us 2 or 3 years before, because he was appointed in 2003, that we would go for a large exhibition in Luxembourg on these kind of fair trade topics. And I wrote the original concept of that exposition, or exhibition. And he managed to get all the funds and to get all the other professionals you need to put up something similar in place. And that exhibition, under the title of All We Need, so it was about human needs, resources, where the title was human needs, resources, and fairness. So we had also a world shop, a fair trade shop put into the exhibition. And that exhibition was the second most important project of the whole year in Luxembourg. It had like 30,000 people visiting it, and a very, very good follow-up in the local media. So that was really a very, very big thing. And it was, well, maybe that, and then I'll finish that. It was based on the theory of human needs that was developed by one of the alternative Nobel Prize winners, Manfred Max Neef, an economist and sociologist from Chile, who died, I think, like 3 years ago. He was then also coming to Salzburg. He was visiting the exhibition in Luxembourg, and the whole exhibition was, well, it was in 10 parts, because he had the theory that there are 10 basic human needs that need to be fulfilled, each one, not like the classical Maslow scheme where you have some basic needs and then all the others come on top of that. But his idea is that all human needs are at the same level, and to be happy you need to fulfill all of them, and not only the basic ones, or trying first with the basic ones and then moving further up. So that was an important one, yes.
And so you said your best friend was somebody who was working on this project. How did you meet this best friend of yours? Was it through school in Salzburg?
No. We met at secondary school in Luxembourg.
Okay.
Yeah, we came together in one class when I was 14 or so, 13 or 14.
And was this one of the colleagues that went to Mexico with you initially?
No, that were two other guys from the same class.
Okay.
But with this best friend of mine, where the relationship has been moving up and down, well, for the last 40 years it has been very stable, but around the time we went to university, well, we had even like 1 year where we didn't talk to each other. We were very clear in our opinions and in our interests, and well, but sometimes you have to quarrel about, and maybe afterwards things sort out.
Along with this best friend, and as you mentioned earlier, your wife having such an impact on you as well, is there any other people, when you think about, all of your accomplishments in the career that you've had, any people who you felt have really made an impact on your life or have been really critical in making your work as successful as you have been?
Well, I would say all your friends are part of you. So you don't exist as an individual just like that in this universe. You are more or less the composite of the people around you and of your friends. So all of them have been important to me. And well, I am happy to state that most of my friends, I think there are only 1 or 2 exceptions, they have been friends for 40 or 50 years now, or even longer. So that's important, because that's people you can tell them everything you are about to do or not to do, and they give you their fair answer, and you learn from their answers, and then you can go on again. So that's been, I think, most important. And then I had one educational experience that was also for me somehow very eye-opening. When I left EZA in 1999, I had like 8 months off more or less, because I still had so many, how do you call it, overtime hours. And it was not only overtime hours, it was overtime weeks and weeks. And then I went to the United Kingdom to a course, a 3 weeks course at the Schumacher College. That's where the Schumacher College is in the very far southwest of the United Kingdom in Devon. And it has always understood itself as being a kind of green university, more or less. And they have been able to attract really the most incredible thinkers of green thinking. So during those, well, I spent like 3 weeks, and then I went again for another 3 weeks. But you had people like Vandana Shiva, this very well-known Indian anti-genetic movement activist, or Amory Lovins, who should be well known in the United States, because he wrote one of the very famous books titled Natural Capitalism in 99. Well, it came out in 99 because we were the first ones on that course to read the book. He got it fresh from the press. And other people who were very much involved in and very well-known people in this kind of issues. So that was for me interesting, because that course brought together people from all over the world, all people interested in well, a fair globalization and more social justice in their respective countries. And that was really very, very impressive. The director of the then director of the Schumacher College was an Indian-born activist, Satish Kumar, who was one of the most brilliant persons I've ever met. It was very impressive. In 1955, he went on foot from India towards London. In 1955, that was an important year for this anti-nuclear movement and peace movement. And he went on a peace journey from India to London without a single penny, because his guru in India had told him that he should do it without any money, because if you have money, you always will have enemies as well. And he made it, and that was fantastic person.
And can you expand a little bit on the experiences that you found at that school, that educational experience, that how it affected your work?
Well, it opened up new contexts for me, and that was important. Although in the meantime, these contexts have gone lost. But nevertheless, it was inspiring, because for me it was clear that this was now the way to follow, and it was not only about fair trade and development issues, but it was also about a larger, I would say, green agenda. And yes.
Speaking of your green agenda, we have learned that even after retiring in 2020, you have remained actively engaged and you continue to do extensive work in fair trade and global learning. Specifically, you have held an impactful role in the Generation Plus Salzburg group of the Austrian Green Party. Could you describe this role for us, including how you got into it and what impact it has had on you and your work?
Well, I got into it more or less 2 years ago, because I was asked by a very good friend of mine, who has been a colleague of mine when we made this conference, this reverse conference for the alternative Nobel Prize winners. He was then, together with me, we were the both of us, we were responsible for this single day of meetings, as we called it. And he knew that I was retired, and it was also clear that I wanted to do some job in, well, let's say in green surroundings. And he asked me, because he was then member of the committee of the association, if I would be interested. I said, yes, okay, I will come to your next meetings, because this group, well, part of the people, they meet every 2 weeks. And then I was going there to their meetings, and well, it was okay. Then I was asked if I would like to stand for the next committee, because elections were coming up. I didn't see why I shouldn't, so I stood, and I'm now the deputy cashier of the association. So that's the formal role. But as a matter of fact, I do very much like organizing things, organizing lectures, organizing group meetings, organizing journeys or trips to different cities in Austria, and that is what I've been doing ever since beginning of last year. So I organize many events for this Generation Plus. So we are 60 plus going until 95. Our oldest member is 95. Most of them are 70, between 70 and 80. And we are doing a lot of activities. So we meet two times a month for our normal meeting. That is 2 hours. It's not that much, but on top of that, we have mostly 2 or 3 other activities per month. I'm responsible for the newsletter of the association that is coming out every 2 weeks. Next one will be tomorrow. Yes, that's it.
And so you mentioned learning about sustainability was a big influence on your work at some point in your life, but previously you'd been inspired by your wife to be interested in fairness around the world.
Mhm.
How related would you say these concepts are, and when did they impact your life? Like, at what points in your careers and work did they influence you?
Well, I guess you need both. I think it's not really viable that you have only one. If you go for social justice, you have to ask yourself, how should this world develop? Is it reasonable that we deplete our resources as fast as we do it, that we produce as much garbage as we do, that everyone thinks that he needs not only 1 car but 2 cars or 3 cars? All that comes together for me, because for me, I was very much into this social justice, and for me then at a certain point of time it became clear that this alone didn't work. You must have an idea of how your society should evolve and how the environmental questions should be dealt with. And I think nowadays I have worked 3 years also for an organization that was at the beginning of the 2000s, that was and still is active in climate issues. I think this climate question has to be dealt with, even if the president of your country doesn't care at all, but it still will need to be tackled. And I think you can't do the one without doing the other one, and it's also, well, it's also, you can also see that in your own country, in the United States, both go together. It's in my judgment, it's a government that has no interest in social justice at all, and no interest in environmental questions. So even on the negative side, it goes together. And I'm very much convinced that on the positive side, it also must go together.
Clearly showing passion for these matters and, showing that you've had such an impactful role in different elements of Austrian society as well as internationally. Did you ever expect when you were younger for this to be your trajectory and for your path to be so impactful on various organizations, such as, holding a role as general manager for fair trade organizations and being a part of Austrian's Green Party? Was this something that you saw for yourself in the future?
No, not at all. Not at all. No, I know that today many people think that you can plan a whole life through, and that at 25 or 28 at latest you must have a plan of what you are striving at, and what has to be put into reality in the decades to come. I didn't have any plan at all. Things simply happened, and if you are open, and if you have a certain interest, and if you are not prepared to give in too fast and to forget about your interests, then I'm convinced that many opportunities will simply show up, because you will then have friends and people who know you, who know about your interests, and who will sometimes come by and bring you the opportunity you have been looking for many months or years, and you weren't aware of it, or you didn't see it, or it simply happened to be in a different city or so. No, I didn't have any plan at all, but things have sorted out very well at last, because I think it also has to be said, I was active in, well, my whole life is an NGO life. But working in NGOs has also meant for many years that I didn't know at the beginning of the year whether my job would be secure, and whether it would be possible to have 38 hours of work and the associated income, or maybe only 30 or 25 or 20 hours of work. So my working hours, they were going up and down accordingly to what the resources of that particular NGO were for the coming year. And that's not always been very easy. It's been partly cushioned by the fact that my wife has been a teacher, and that she has always had a secure income. And with that, well, it was possible for me, or possible for the two of us, to also live with this kind of insecurity coming from the resource conditions or situation of NGOs in general.
One interesting thing from our previous discussion was about your identity. We call this the Voices of Salzburg, and you've lived in Salzburg for decades now. And yet, when we asked you if you saw yourself as an Austrian or a resident of, or not resident, a citizen of Salzburg, you said that you are from Luxembourg. Do you identify more just solely due to citizenship reasons with Luxembourg, or do you see yourself as an Austrian?
Well, I can't see myself as an Austrian because I don't have the Austrian citizenship, and I don't have any right to vote in national elections in Austria. Therefore, I'm not an Austrian. I would say I'm in between. I still have some strong Luxembourg feelings, but I have spent all my adult life in Austria. So for the last 50 years, I've lived and worked in Austria, and well, I have, with the exception of 2 or 3 people in Luxembourg, I've got all my friends, all my professional contacts in Austria, and therefore, well, my stronger relationship is towards Austria, but I don't feel as an Austrian because I am not.
And where did you meet your wife? Is she from Salzburg?
Yes. Oh, well, she has come for her studies to Salzburg. She's from a southern part of Austria, and she came to Salzburg to study at a teacher's training college.
Very interesting. So having expansive success and really creating multiple impacts across various organizations, is there anything else that you would really like to share with us that we possibly didn't have covered in this interview, or anything that for anyone listening to this one day that you would really like them to take away from this interview or to know about yourself and the work that you've completed?
Well, I think I have already told most of what is interesting, but one aspect that is maybe interesting for listeners in the United States is that well, the reality in Europe is completely different from what is in the United States, because we've got these many very small countries. Luxembourg being the optimum, because Luxembourg has like 1,000 square miles, so it's next to nothing, and nevertheless it's an independent country on its own. And with these many smaller countries, even if they are a little bit bigger, you have so many different languages being spoken. And I have the impression that with every language you get a completely new world that is opening up to you. And sometimes people from the outside looking at the United States may have the impression that it would be good to learn more foreign languages and to open up towards the rest of the world. And in Europe, you are simply forced to it. When I was starting my university studies, it was still not that common that somebody started at university with 3 languages, like I did. But nowadays, that's pretty common. It's the young people, most of them do 3 or 4 languages, and I think that's very, very important, because if you know other people, if you know other countries, it's more difficult to shoot at each other. So it's learning languages is also a kind of peace education for me.
Very impactful. Thank you so much for your time and everything you've had to tell us in this interview.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful experience, and we've really enjoyed talking to you and learning about the great work you've done all throughout your life. So thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I also enjoyed it.